A special House committee has been formed to investigate the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. Their first hearing was Tuesday, and the testimony was both disheartening and very traumatic to hear officers who were less equipped for a battle than those who they were fighting against. I want you guys to take a listen to testimony from Henry Dunn. He's a Black officer who was there that day. Very emotional testimony. Take a listen.
I told them to just leave the Capitol, and in response they yelled, "No, man, this is our house. President Trump invited us here. We're here to stop the steal. Joe Biden is not the president. Nobody voted for Joe Biden. I'm a law enforcement officer, and I do my best to keep politics out of my job." I responded, "Well, I voted for Joe Biden. Does my vote not count?" One woman in a pink MAGA shirt yelled, "You hear that, guys? This nigger voted for Joe Biden." Then the crowd, perhaps around 20 people, joined in screaming, "Boo, fucking nigger." No one had ever called me a nigger while wearing the uniform. Other Black officers shared with me their own stories of racial abuse on January 6th. One officer told me he had never been called a nigger to his face, and that streak ended on January 6th. Another Black officer later told me he had been confronted by insurrectionists in the Capitol who told him, "Put your gun down and we'll show you what kind of nigger you really are." Telling the truth shouldn't be hard. Fighting on January 6th, that was hard. Showing up January 7th, that was hard. The fence came down and still nothing has changed. Everything is different, but nothing has changed. Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger are being lauded as courageous heroes. And while I agree with that notion, why? Because they told the truth? Why is telling the truth hard? I guess in this America, it is. We would do January 6th all over again. We wouldn't stay home because we knew it was going to happen.
Ben, Dr. Mack, this was the first hearing that they had within the special House committee that this testimony came from. What are your thoughts on what Henry Dunn had to say?
It's about as real of a testimony, congressional testimony, as I've ever heard. To be able to, and you could just feel that when he stated what was shouted to him, the disrespect, and again, to talk about that disrespect being while he's in uniform, for him to address them to say, when they say nobody voted for Biden, for him to say, well, I voted. But for him to echo the sentiments of what they said, it was shocking that it was in the halls of Congress. And it was shocking because I cannot believe that he had the moral courage to say exactly what was stated, because that gives those members in Congress some idea. It should give them a very chilling idea of just how nefarious this insurrection and these individuals were. I simply applaud that brother for speaking truth to power. I mean, I'm humbled by that testimony.
Yeah. I'm thinking the testimony and Brother Mack, as you're alluding to, not only his testimony there on the floor, but also the testimony that he gave during the event of January 6th. The fact that he told them, they said that Donald Trump won. He said, well, I voted for Joe Biden. Doesn't my vote count? Yes. And instead of answering that question directly, which would be, yes, your vote counts, they instead turned to their violence. They turned to their bigotry. They turned away from the inconvenient truth that more people voted against their Führer than voted for him. And so instead of confronting that reality, they turned to their bigotry and violence. Isn't that the pattern of white supremacy throughout history?
Very much so. Very much so. You couldn't have put it any better.
And, the thing that crosses my mind, I know that we were having some off-air conversation about Henry Dunn's use of the N-word. Some people feeling that even in replays, maybe it's too much. There's a part of me that feels it's necessary for Americans to understand that here we are in 2021, and we still have people who are out here calling Black folks that word to their face in a very hateful and violent manner. What are your thoughts on the use of the N-word? Do you think it's something that, maybe as media, national media outlets are going to be replaying this clip today, should they be bleeping that out to be respectful? Or do you think that that soundbite needs to be heard in its entirety so that people can feel it?
First and foremost, America invented the word nigger. They invented that word to be derogatory, to be insulting, to be dehumanizing. They invented the word. And so now to play it absolutely places in America's consciousness exactly just part of our experience in this country. So when we want to talk about the critical race theory, we want to talk about teaching Americans history, that's part of America. You invented that word. You absolutely invented that word. And so now you seem to have a problem hearing it, but you had no problem inventing it. You have no problem saying it. But when it's placed out in front of God and everybody, now all of a sudden you have a problem with it. I absolutely believe, because again, it shows, as Brother Dixon said, it just shows the bigotry of what they would do when placed on a fair field of an election and they lose that election. They are now going to turn to that bigotry. Yeah, every vote counted, but nigga, your vote didn't count. Yes, play the word. Absolutely play. Not play. Now, if he had to describe himself in such a manner, I'd be problematic with it. But he's simply telling you, he's testifying of what his experience was on January 6th. And that should place in the minds of every American that's listening to it. No, they didn't come down there in a peaceful manner. They came down there in a racist, bigotry, violent manner. So yes, play the word. America, listen to it. That's what you invented. That's what you created. That's what you all about.
Ben?
Church said amen. I come from a different perspective, but I completely agree with Brother Mack. My perspective is one of maintaining the platform that we're building here, and the kind of strikes that we get, not only from YouTube or even from iTunes, the podcast version. We'll get that explicit label put right on us. So I'm taking those things in consideration in terms of our platform. But I absolutely agree with Brother Mack in the sense of there's something about it when you hear it in the context of their full-throated bigotry, their full empowered bigotry. That thing hits you a little differently. If I could, I wish we could mute it in the ears of Black people, because we felt that impact all of our lives every time we got called that word. I remember the first time I got called that word. And perhaps the absolute right thing and proper thing to do is to allow white America for you to feel for a hot second what it is like to be jarred into the reality that in this country, Black folks have been referred to that so much so. Yeah, I know it's a different iteration of the word, but on my birth certificate, I was born in 1980. On my birth certificate, it says Negro. Come on. This is so deeply rooted in this country, and the variations and the iterations of that word have been used at all times as a categorization of whiteness looking down upon our Blackness.
But, listen, Ben, even if you're going to discuss a solution, you cannot discuss the solution until you get to the quintessential reasoning for the problem. And so for YouTube or anybody else to go, no, we don't want to hear that. No, this is my experience. So you don't want to hear me, but you want to claim that you down with diversity, you down with trying to make a change? Then come to the stark reality of this is the way, this is our experience every day. You're uncomfortable for a second. You're uncomfortable for the short time frame that you have to hear the word. Try living it. Try living not only in that word, but try living and being treated that way, which again is why I say, not only do I condemn the word when it's being used by white folks and their bigotry, but I absolutely bring the same type of condemnation against black folks when we try to dress it up and use it as a term of endearment. There's nothing endearing about the word. It was invented to dehumanize, to insult, degrade us as a people. So yes.
Yeah, and Ben, to your point, I think we could do a whole episode on censorship.
No, I was gonna say we could do a whole episode on the N-word.
Yeah, well, and that too, right? But the way these social media platforms have put a stronghold on Black creators, limiting the things that we're able to do, shadow banning us, turning monetization features off. And so it's really unfortunate that you can't be authentic and real without being censored to some degree. But I know that is a true experience, having had those experiences myself. The one thing that, bringing it back to January 6th, you guys, I keep thinking about is the fact that we've seen more than 540 people charged for what they did on January 6th. What are your thoughts on the fact that out of those 540 people charged, no one has been charged in the deaths of the 5 people who were killed?
It harkens me back to the 16th Street bombing, if you will, right? When that bombing took place, how long did it take before justice was rendered against Dynamite Bob, who set that bomb in 1963? It takes me back to the murders of the 3 civil rights workers in Mississippi in 1964. The final guy who got accused, who got found guilty, he was 80 years old, Edgar Ray Killen. He was 80 years old by the time he was convicted. So in the words of Dr. King, justice delayed is justice denied. So the fact that, history will clearly show us, and even when you go back to these cases, the civil rights cases, in Mississippi, in the case of the 3 civil rights workers, they had 400 U.S. Navy sailors. They had local and state authorities looking for these bodies. And when they finally found them, and with FBI investigation, with all the evidence they had, the state of Mississippi absolutely refused to try these 21 men for those murders. This is exactly what we're seeing now. They want to change the narrative. They want to say it wasn't treason. Again, you don't even have to imagine if that had been Black folks attacking the Capitol in that manner. We would have never faced trial because, trust and believe, as Brother Ben said, they wouldn't have thrown the book at us. They would have thrown bullets at us. Make no mistake about it. So the fact that over 500 people committed treason, attacked democracy, and nobody is found guilty. And the one person, that we did talk about here, you get 8 months for that. Hey, welcome to white privilege. White America, that's what we're talking about. This is white privilege at its finest, on display for all of America, for all of the world to see. When the world trying to understand what is it that Black folks mean when they say white privilege, this is a quintessential example of it.
That's right. That's right. And really briefly, Georgia, I'm looking in real time at them sever any questions of causality from the deaths of those 5 people and the actions of the insurrectionists. I mean, in so many cases, we've seen Black people who are just in the proximity of a crime get tried, right? How many people do we know that are in jail right now who were just in the vicinity of a crime get charged because the laws allow for that? But in this case, we see that they have completely severed the fact that the officer who died, the Capitol Police officer who died a few days after the insurrection, he died of a stroke, but nobody wants to connect the dots to say that his death was a direct result of their actions. How do you get away with that? White privilege. That's how you get away with it.
But Ben, not only their actions, Brother Dunn, the officer, the Black officer stated, he said, look, if you hire somebody for murder and you find the hitman, he's not the only one guilty. You got to also convict the person who hired him. And there is no doubt who hired these insurrectionists. They had his name plastered all over their banners. Trump, Trump, Trump. So again, when you look at that, when it's all of a sudden we're trying to figure out who caused this, there's no figuring out who caused this. You absolutely know who caused this. And I also like the testimony of the officer. I think it was Michael Fanon. And what I loved about his testimony is that by the time these officers had given their experience, their account of what it was like to be in their shoes, and again, these congressional members always want to talk about how heroic those men and women in uniform are, be them serving in war or protected, how proud they are and how heroic they are. And Michael Fanon, I love what he said. He absolutely condemned any congressional member who would try to look at this other than the evilness and the attack on democracy that it was.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, I want to pivot here. Simone Biles announced that she's going to be pulling out of the gymnastic finals. I know a lot of us have been watching the Olympics and enjoying them. Some folks feel very strongly about the fact that she's stepping away. She cited mental health reasons, that she wants to be able to take care of herself, very similar to the decision we saw Naomi Osaka make when she decided to pull out the French Open for mental health reasons. And it frustrates me that when you have Black women who are making a decision to prioritize their mental health, and let's be clear, if you're not in a Black body and performing on an international stage, you have absolutely no idea the pressure that these women face, the anxiety that they are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, the microaggressions that they have to endure and being in these very white dominant spaces. Okay. And so it's very real when you have a Black woman who someone like Simone Biles has excelled and has achieved so much. She's making a huge professional sacrifice, and a person does not make those decisions lightly in order to prioritize her mental health. And in the same way that we saw Naomi attacked for her decision, we're seeing some similar backlash. I want you guys to listen to this clip from Charlie Kirk and hear what he had to say about her decision.
So Simone Biles, who's obviously a very talented gymnast, decided not to compete in the gold medal competition. Now, she probably could have just competed and just kind of checked the boxes and they would have got a gold medal. Simone Biles says, "This Olympic Games, I wanted to be for myself when I came in, and I felt like I was still doing it for other people," as she cried after the team event on Tuesday. So that just, it like hurts my heart because doing what I love has been kind of taken away from me to please other people. Yeah, that's the point, Simone Biles. You're representing your nation, you're selfish sociopath. You kidding me? Today it's like, you know what? I'm not going to do something stupid and get hurt. It's just not worth it. Especially when you have like three amazing athletes that can step up to the plate and do it. So you know who has the gold medal? Russia. Russia. I have to go look at these 4'11" Russian Olympians chewing on their gold medals, smirking at the Americans. I'm not okay with that. But honestly, that's where we're headed. We are raising a generation of weak people like Simone Biles. Again, if you want to be, if she got all these mental health problems, don't show up. She's an incredible athlete. Of course she's an incredible athlete. I'm not saying, I just said she's probably the greatest gymnast of all time. She's also very selfish, she's immature, and she is a shame to the country. She's totally a sociopath. Of course she's a sociopath. Andrew said she's not a sociopath. What kind of person skips the gold medal match? Who does that? It's a shame to the nation. You just gave a gift to the Russians. Don't show up. If you're not ready for the big time, we got thousands of young female gymnasts that would love to take the place. Thousands. Simone Biles just showed the rest of the nation that when things get tough, you shatter into a million pieces.
You know, Charlie Kirk, are a shame.
Keep him on the screen, please. But keep that white boy on the screen at all times.
He is a shame.
This conversation.
He is a shame. He is a shame to our nation. Simone Biles, I think that she did something that's very brave. Most people don't have the courage to admit that they are struggling mentally. That is a very hard thing to express openly. And a lot of people who do have mental health issues, they hide behind other things and they're not transparent about what they're going through. And the fact that you have someone like Charlie Kirk who's sitting here being a bully. And for me, I mean, I look at him and I think he does this for ratings. I think he does it for the clicks and the shares or whatever. But it is people like him that is fueling the silos that we have in our nation right now. It's people like him who are causing our communities to be racially polarized.
You know, Georgia, it takes me back to June 22nd, 1938, Yankee Stadium. On that day, the Brown bomber, Joe Louis, was about to fight Mack for the second time. Because in that first fight, Schmeling beat him. And when I tell you, all of America, and no one has to imagine what it was like for black folks in 1938. But I'm telling you that the president of the United States, J. Edgar Hoover, was in attendance. That's how bad, you know, when he talks about this national pride, that's how much national pride was in that fight, that they needed Joe Louis. I mean, the president himself came up to Joe Louis and said, Joe, we absolutely need you to beat this German, Mack Schmeling. That's all they care about. That's all they care about. So now Barry Sanders, one of the greatest running backs ever. Many of us know that if Barry had to continue playing, he would have set NFL record for yardage way beyond. But Barry was looking out for his own personal health. And now you stated something, Georgia, about when black women bring this out. Naomi brings it out. Simone brings it out. But you watch where the attention towards mental health in athletic goes. They're going to go to Michael Phelps. That's because, and to his point, Phelps has been very sympathetic to what Simone has gone through. And he talked about his own mental challenges that he's still dealing with today. But the fact that they're going to go to him to get this narrative and now all of a sudden become sympathetic. So I would love if this white boy, Kirk, was sitting in front of Michael Phelps and calling the sister a sociopath because of the level of anxiety or the level of competition she was in. I can guarantee you, this player here probably ain't even won a city title, let alone being the world's greatest gymnast in the case of Simone Biles. But it's par for the course for America.
Brother Mack is certainly far more distinguished in his response to this white boy than I'd expected. We'll save it for the after party. All the rest of the adjectives that we have for this lump of clay, barely sentient lump of clay, who decided to put his mouth on our young black sister. Charlie, you have nothing about you that gives you any distinguishing accomplishment to suggest that you have the right to fix your mouth to talk about somebody as distinguished as Simone Biles. What's on your resume? Kissing ass?
Right.
That's it. So how do your entire organization, Talking Points, what is it, Turning Points, whatever it is, it's literally funded by you kissing the ass of millionaires, or rather billionaires, to go to college campuses to rally up a bunch of incel, angry, privileged white boys and gather them all together to explain why they can't get no. That's your audience. I know you well, Charlie. All right, so let's not pretend as though you're qualified to be on the national stage yourself. So I would suggest that you back away from the big kids table, or rather from the big boys table, or rather even more precise, from Simone Biles table, black women's table. You have no standing at the table of black women.
No, and look, listen, I'm trying to remember. Was it Megyn Kelly who was it? Who was the
Megyn Kelly?
That said, shut up and bounce the ball. Right? So now here this fool is, just shut up and do the flip. You can't even carry her jock, player.
Come on, man.
I need to be in the after party right now.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, I think that we're seeing this pattern, though, of the harm and the violence that the white community continues to project on especially Black women, right? And it can be subtle at times, it can be passive at times, but these are the small nuances, the attacks on people in the Black community. And so, I want to say something to allies. There are a lot of allies who have friends like Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk, and you guys you hang out on the weekend, go to your cabins, hit the lake, whatever. You guys need to speak up, need to start to denounce the rhetoric before it even gets to the internet. And to me, it's disheartening. You have someone like Simone Biles, who is very accomplished, beautiful, talented, and for him to even insinuate that he could put other people, that other people could take her place. Yes, I have some things to say in the after party too.
And Georgia, trust and believe this.
I'm trying to tiptoe and be nice and be professional.
We're trying our best.
But check this out. All those other little girls that he's talking about, those thousands of others. Hey, Charlie, they didn't make the cut, player. They didn't even make the cut. And trust and believe, had the team been comprised of all those 1,000 little girls, you'd have been lucky. You wouldn't have even got the silver medal, okay? And Russia, you still be looking down on them. But again, this is that Cold War mentality. Don't care nothing about the soul of the sister. All I care about is this nationalism. And if you want to call her a coward because she didn't compete fairly, what would you call those 500 plus insurrectionists that broke in when they lost the election? What do you call them, Charlie?
That's right.
Let me hear that. Let me hear that commentary there, since we want to talk about winning and losing. What do you call your little 500 brothers and sisters, your cousins, your stepchildren? What do you call them for what they did on
sociopaths? Real sociopaths.
Here's the gag.
Sociopaths, treasons, call it whatever you want. Now, Charlie, like Brother Ben said, player, you're not qualified to sit at the table to talk about Black women as accomplished as Simone. But now go in there and talk about your own. Let me hear the commentary about them 500 on January 6th. Let's hear that.
No, his commentary is the ass-kissing commentary. Like, I'm sorry. Listen, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave him alone, and we'll save a little bit more for the rest of the day. But the thing about this is that he understands his demographic. He understands his audience. There are so many conservatives who are out there. He is popular now. He is going to be even more popular because he said these horrific things about our young Black sister. And that lets you know what the commodity of exchange is for conservatism. And it is the exchange of bigotry and hatred towards Blackness. That's how you promote yourself. If you look at anyone who has ascended to the top of conservatism, it has been on the backs and the bones and the blood of Black people. And this is what he's doing right now. He's going to get rewarded for this bigotry.
Well, I tell you what, now he may get rewarded from them, but he just put a big target on himself as far as we're concerned. And I'm not talking physical target. I'm talking about being critical of who this fool is. And like you say, if you know that, clown the way you know him, man, bring him on.
Do you know how many people in his audience are struggling with mental health issues? Mental health is not something that's exclusive to the Black community, okay? We know that just as many, if not more, white folks are dealing with depression, are dealing with bipolar issues. So mental health, it crosses all spectrums. It's not exclusive to poor communities. Affluent people have mental health issues too. So he better be careful there, because he might be, kind of pissing off his own face.
He doesn't. You're absolutely right. But the reason he doesn't care is because they know they will sacrifice the well-being of their community, their mental health. They'll let the police shoot down white folks just so that they can celebrate the hatred and bigotry that they have for Black folks. And that's the audience that he's catering to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys, we are on the clock. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Stay around for more on The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Don't take it personal.
Welcome again to the Benjamin Show. It's your boy DJ Exclusive, James Weber Williams. We are in the building. Good morning, y'all. I look so bright. Look at me. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, y'all. Make sure y'all stay tuned. More of the Benjamin Dixon Show is coming up next, man. Grab your coffee, your tea, wherever it is you need to get your morning started, y'all. And we'll get it together here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, everybody. I see y'all. Somebody put up the bat signal in Bubba Kane. Look at that. Hey. Dwayne, you still hear it? Oh, it's probably this microphone. 1 second. Hold on right quick. Okay, say it again. Okay. Is it still going in and out?